Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Blockchain Startup Show. I'm Avan Dabash. In this episode, let's meet a company which is setting out a vision for a better tomorrow with more human-centric internet. We all know that the challenges the internet faces today are more complex. Making sense of a space which is so rapidly evolving, involving so many different moving parts and pieces, is becoming increasingly difficult, let alone designing the right kind of solutions that might address all of these challenges effectively. The company that we have today on the show envisions a future where the power of technology empowers every individual and every organization to control their data, hence leading to the way to build a more inclusive, resilient, and democratic future internet. Enter Spheron, a company reimagining deploying applications on the cloud for Web3 using decentralized technologies. Well, to put it in even simpler terms, this company offers seamless storage, web hosting, and compute capabilities for the next generation of applications. So, without any further ado, please join me in welcoming the co-founder and the CEO of Spheron, Prashant Maurya. Prashant, welcome to the Blockchain Startup Show.
Hey, Evan, thank you so much for inviting me here for this awesome interview today.
Let's begin by talking about why an app developer should even care about using decentralized infrastructure, Prashant.
The app developers should care enough because there are a lot of things they should move towards that decentralized infrastructure. I would give you some examples around that. So for example, let's say we are living in a digital world, right? And when we live in a digital world, we don't want any one companies or any one entities controlling every details of ours. Let's take example of India as well, right? When we started building in India, like even today also in the government as well, everyone is pushing towards self-reliancy. What that basically means? That basically means like you own most of the things so that you cannot be paralyzed in the time of anything. Like so, a time can go either on right direction or wrong direction, but your digital infrastructure exists, doesn't matter, right? So that is where we feel like there should not be a central entity controlling your business versus there should be a decentralized entity which should be controlling your business, where everyone owns the piece of infra where your application is running, and no one entity can basically harm you by just coming and blocking you anywhere. So there should not be a censorship on top of like one person should not monopolize the entire digital infrastructure. So that is one of the reasons like most of the Web3 apps, even apps today, they should definitely move to decentralized infrastructure because that is what it is going to make sure like their app doesn't rely on any centralized providers out there.
Is decentralized infrastructure as reliable as the centralized ones, albeit the cost and efficiency benefits?
Let me tell you one thing. I have been building to decentralized infrastructure for the past 4 years now. And believe me, decentralized infrastructure is much cheaper than centralized one. I'll tell you why. A very classic example. If you go and live in US, your expenditure for electricity bill, your expenditure for hiring a person there, and everything goes higher and higher. Now, if you have to pass that to India, or you have to sell something, a product which is built in US to India, it by default becomes very expensive. Now, what is the best way to do that is to come and build into the place where it is less expensive. Now, imagine if you are running infrastructure companies in multiple geolocations, for example, let's say in India, in all of the Asian countries out here, even in US, now the average cost of running this infrastructure will be lower than any centralized. Now, what else component can basically add up on top of it is, so let's say, let me take you a very classic example here, Amazon, right? So AWS owns multiple infrastructure. Now, if AWS owns multiple infrastructure, they also have an operation cost as well. So you keep on adding these things on top of it, which keeps on increasing the cost on the centralized infrastructure side. So on that perspective, decentralized infrastructure, like it is unbeatable at this point of time while we are speaking. Now coming to reliance, performance and everything, and that is where we at Spheron and a lot of people into this space are working towards to make that happen.
And if you can just tell us briefly, what exactly is Spheron?
What we are trying to do at Spheron is we are trying to optimize the infra cost by bringing decentralized infrastructure into the place. What that basically means like if you are running a company, you are running a startup, you are running multiple things in the space, in the digital world, you need infrastructure at your disposal, which is cheap, which is performant, which is scalable, And that can only be achieved by decentralization. And that is where Spheron is paving the way to make that happen. At Spheron, what we are trying to build is a middle layer. I don't know like how many people will understand this in the middle layer term. So what at Spheron we are trying to do is we are trying to bridge that network, or you can say that road, so that we can make Web3 infrastructure easily accessible to the mass audiences, so that they can go and host their applications, run their compute, store their data, or whatever they want to on a decentralized infrastructure without spending tons of their time, without spending tons of or even millions of their money in making that happen. So that is what we are doing at Spheron One.
Got it. So usability layers such as Spheron are emerging in the Web3 space. How do you differentiate as more players are building for same or even similar use cases?
I believe infra is like, it's comparable to the real world as well. So if you see in India or even across the world, whatever infra, when I say infra, it's a real estate business, right? So in the real estate business, as the time passes on, you build a brand awareness and everything. And that brand basically creates a value because that infra company or that real estate company might have earned the experience of building the buildings into one of the toughest locations. The same is applicable to any infra company in digital world as well. So the more time passes on, the more they get matured. Now coming to specifically on Spheron side, we have been building this, like I and my co-founder Mitrashis, we have been building this for the past 4 years. Like even before starting Spheron, we have been doing a lot of research around it, understanding around Web3 infrastructure and why even we should come here. So we have that lead into this space on that perspective. Now coming to talking about the innovation, because everywhere innovation matters a lot. And at Spheron, what we have done, we were the first folks who designed a lot of innovations into the space where we made infra neutral for everyone. What that basically means, you can access infrastructure from anywhere, like from different chains out there, from Filecoin, from different chains out there. And then you can also access infrastructure without even understanding blockchain. So a lot of things which we have done, which really separates us apart from anyone else into the market who are building into the space. And it's a time game and as well as execution game. So, and we have timed and execution both at the right time. Now we are focused on like making sure we have more and more distribution channels getting created. And once that happens, I don't think like there will be a lot of companies who can come on the level of us, but I really respect the competition because that also gives us a boost to like keep on working for more and more and keep bringing more and more innovation. So that is where we kind of stand apart in terms of like what we are building at Spheron and what others are doing into the space.
That's interesting. And tell us a little bit more about the plans in place to make Spheron a decentralized organization.
If you ask us today, 100% decentralization is not something which everyone should target for, right? Because decentralization also has some drawbacks, which most of the people don't want to like go ahead. Let me give you a very classic example. Europe has a GDPR laws, India has a different data laws, and every laws has a different meaning of it. Now, if you go with pure decentralization, what can happen? It can also be easily exploited on the data layer. And that is where we personally feel at Spheron, there's a time and speed at which we should move toward decentralization. So we are not Web3 completely, but we are Web 2.5 at this point of time while we are speaking. But as we are speaking, what we are also trying to do at Spheron itself, I'll give you a very classic example. Some of our backend servers, which were earlier hosted on some centralized servers, we moved that out to a decentralized one. And that is what we are trying to do slowly as we are kind of moving forward. So no, we are not completely decentralized, but we are sufficiently decentralized so that when Spheron shuts off, your data, your web application, anything which you have done on top of Spheron will never get lost. It is going to be as it is. You can always pull it out with our open source code, which we are developing, which we are already open source. There are a lot of things which we have open source as well. You can use that to pull out the data, and you don't even need Spheron to be existing there to basically make that happen. So at Spheron, what the success metrics which we define is two-part. The one is when most of the Web3 companies which are being built into Web3 are start moving and start realizing like Web3 infrastructure is must. And that is where we are looking for to make that happen. So let's say thousands of Web3 companies or Web3 protocol or dApps start using Spheron. That is what our success metrics kind of look like. That is one. The second metrics which we are targeting now is onboarding more and more developers into this space and also educating them around Web3 infrastructure and around its usability. So these are the two metrics which we are very heavily tracking at Spheron. And that is where we are heavily inclined and investing our time into to make that happen with different techniques, with different marketing efforts, with different ways of educating people. So if you kind of go and see this Spheron socials, you will find we work very differently to acquire developers. So that is where our kind of success metrics kind of aligns. But overall, what we want is most of the people to start moving, or most of the developers into the space who are already in Web3 first, so they start using Web3 infrastructure, and then we slowly move to the Web2, and that time our success metrics will be very different.
On that note, let me take a quick break. On the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Prashant Maurya of Spheron. Welcome back to the Blockchain Startup Show. This week, we're in conversation with the co-founder and CEO of Spheron, Prashant Maurya. Do you think that censorship from centralized players is really a problem? And what are some legitimate use cases where censorship resistance for application is important?
Let me give you a very classic example. First of all, like censorship resistance is very important for all the businesses who are building into this space. For example, let's say, I believe if you might have seen, there was a very good classic episode which was running on Sony. I think it was a Shark Tank India. There was a guy who came over that same platform, and what they told is like, and I'm quoting it as a quote, and it was already aired into the public TV as well, is when Facebook has deplatformed them from their platform and their revenue, and then next morning he woke up and his business was out of the market. So what basically happened in that case? Like, there was a company which censored its content. It was a genuine company. They were doing genuine things, but they got censored, right? And who controls those censorship is one person who can basically go and plug in and plug off. And you are basically running your entire business on the mercy of theirs. Even while we do a lot of things into our day-to-day life, you use application on Apple, you use a lot of different things on Google, AWS, and all of these places. I'm not saying like they are bad players. They are very good players. They have brought the innovation. They have brought everything, whatever we are talking about, whenever we talk about the Web2. But there is also a time when we have to move to a transition. And the transition should be where you move and innovate in a way so that as we move forward, we not just democratize the voting system, we also democratize the ownership of this entire internet, where everyone is going to be like sitting in the future. So that is where I personally think is like the censorship is restriction should be avoided, or you can say we should build a product where there is a very less censorship directly attached. And I can quote tons of different examples where a lot of such thing happens in the past when people have done a great job, but they have been censored. Okay, so that is where we at Spheron, and even myself, I believe firmly, is we should build towards the space where everyone should allow to share the information. Everyone should be allowed to do whatever they wish to, but there should be also certain level of restriction which has to be put on place.
So Prashant, want to understand how Filecoin has helped you in your journey?
Frankly speaking, they have helped in most of the aspects, the entire Filecoin team. The reason being because if you see Filecoin as such, they have a very robust ecosystem of startups who are building into the space. From a lot of names from the Filecoin ecosystem are becoming multi-million dollar Web3 companies and very legitimate companies into the space who are really building the innovation. So for us, how they have helped us is connecting, pushing into their ecosystem, helping us in hiring. Actually, Filecoin has everything what a founder needs to kind of go and scale their startup. And they have helped Spheron specifically in multiple angles. So for example, in funding, in grants, in innovations, in hiring, in all of the major angles, wherever a startup is stuck, they basically come into the picture. So that is how Filecoin has helped us. Apart from that, Filecoin has very robust ecosystem of like smart contract layer also, which is also helping us in terms of like streamlining our process of onboarding more and more people on a Filecoin ecosystem to access their decentralized storage as well. So these are the places where Filecoin basically becomes very helpful. Not only Filecoin, I would highly I would also love to take few names here, specifically talking about Juan, specifically talking about Anshuman and Nikki, and all of these team members from the Filecoin team are doing amazing and pretty fantastic job to like push the founders to go beyond their limits and think out of the box to build something which is going to be used by millions and not thousands of people.
And you've worked with Lumos Labs and Bidler's Tribe. How is the ecosystem support over there?
I believe Lumos has a very interesting story with us, right? So I was the first guy. There was a near hackathon which was going on, and they were doing that, and I I got selected into that, and that is when I got to know about Lumos. And after that, the entire Lumos team became our family. Even today as well, while we speak, is like they have a great support in terms of if you want to learn anything, go ahead. Like the team is fantastic there. Specifically talking about Kavya. She's great in terms of like being as a female founder. She has helped many, not only me, like specifically if you talk about me, like she has helped a lot, but apart from that, she has also had a lot of founders in the space. Coming to the Builders Tribe specifically, I believe now Parin and Raghu is leading that. So they are also doing a very fantastic job because I'm also the part of Builders Tribe for everyone's information as well. And the one thing which we have learned with the Builders Tribe is to support each other at the time of so because whenever you build anything into the startup world, right, you need people around you, not just to support you with money, but also support you with the motivations. They should come over a call, they should talk to you regularly, they should become very handy.
And what's next then for Spheron?
For us, the adoption is something which we are kind of looking at to create more and more distribution channel for Spheron. The second thing is we are working towards to educate more and more people into the space. We have recently launched a program called Sauce, Spheron Open Source. It's not a sauce in the kitchen. It's a real sauce where you can go and contribute in the open source manner. And not only just contribute, you can also earn, learn, and get hired into the ecosystem. So a lot of things which we are doing around the Web3 infrastructure so that more and more people get powered and they should get to know why they should come to Web3 infrastructure and why they should start using. That is second thing. The third thing which we are doing at Spheron is increasing our BD effort. When I say BD effort, is like we are partnering more and more startups. We are getting into the enterprise segment as well, trying to understand how they are functioning, how the decentralized infrastructure can plug in, and how we can help them to optimize their infra cost to around 60 to 70% by incorporating Web3 infrastructure into their pipeline and increase their profit margin into their sheet as well. So a lot of things, these are the three major areas where we are kind of focused on at Spheron now. And that is what we are looking next at Spheron.
You know, before we let you go, I want to understand what would be your advice to someone who's looking to start a Web3 company?
There are a lot of advices, but I would stick to few. The first advice is don't come here if you're not a very strong heart person. And the startup has never been for the people like who get emotionally very impacted or something. And Web3 is much more bigger than like Web2 in that sense. So you have to come here with the mindset is there is a lot of things to innovate. And when there is a lot of things to innovate, there is a less time to do that. And that less time is been handed over to founders. And as a founder, you have to be on your toes day and night to make sure like you innovate and you succeed. That is one thing. Second thing, do not hesitate to collaborate and talk to the founders into the space. This space is very small and everyone is here to help you. The only thing which you should always avoid is to talk to the wrong people, which is always there in every sector. It is not only talking about Web3, it's in every sector. Try to build a very great network of people who are already doing and already spent 3 to 4 years into the space. Try to connect with them. Third, and the most important part is like, if you are if you are a new founder and looking to build in this space, don't just build a very common product into this space. Like if you try to build very consumer-centric product, you will end up in not even scaling it further. The reason being because Web3 works in a very different way. So understand the Web3 deeply, understand its core philosophy, understand why decentralization is important, understand why democratization is important, understand why the economy in which we are kind of building into the space, why we should even be here, right? So all of those whys has to get cleared first before you even jump into this ship, because this ship is not a normal ship of a Web2. It's a Web3 ship where you are going to face with a lot of storms. A lot of times you will start feeling like you are demotivated. You are nobody is talking to you. Just have a patience, keep right people around you, and keep moving forward. And believe me, this space has a lot to give for everyone who comes here. And I'm also open. Like you can always reach out to me as well whenever you feel like to reaching out to me. I'll be more than happy to also respond there as well. So that is what my advice would be like coming peer founders into the space.
Well, I hope viewers, you've noted that down. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's a wrap on yet another episode of the Blockchain Startup Show. This is me, Avan Dabash, signing off.